Long ago, in a time when the world moved slower, and people listened more carefully to the wind, there was a small village nestled between two green hills. In that village, there was a stable, and in that stable, among strong and proud horses with shining coats and straight legs, there lived a horse that nobody wanted. His name was Kamir. Kamir was not ugly. He had kind, dark eyes, and a coat the color of autumn earth, but his left front leg had been injured at birth, and he walked with a quiet, uneven step, not painful, not broken, just different, just slower than the others. Every season, merchants and farmers would come to the stable to choose their horses. They would walk through the rows, running their hands along strong backs, checking teeth, feeling legs, and every season they would pause at Kamir, look down at his uneven walk, and move on without a word. The stable owner, an old man named Ferhat, never gave up on Kamir. He fed him well, he brushed his coat every morning, he spoke to him softly in the early hours before the rest of the village woke up. But even Ferhat, in the quiet corners of his heart, carried a kind of sadness, because he knew what people saw when they looked at Kamir. They did not see the horse. They saw only the limp. One spring, a young man came to the village. His name was Teriel, and he had traveled a long road from somewhere far away. He was thin and tired, and his sandals were worn almost to nothing. He had very little money, only enough for one horse, and not a strong one. Ferhat showed him the stable. Teriel walked slowly through the rows, looking carefully at each horse. When he reached Kamir, he stopped. He stood there for a long time, not looking at the leg, looking at the eyes. Ferhat said quietly, "This one is lame. He walks differently. Most people do not want him." Teriel nodded. He said nothing for a moment. Then he asked, "Can he walk?" Ferhat said yes. He walks every day, slowly. But he walks. Teriel reached out and placed his hand gently on Kamir's forehead. The horse did not flinch. He leaned forward slightly into the hand, as if he had been waiting for someone to touch him, without disappointment in their eyes. Teriel bought Kamir that same afternoon. The people of the village watched with quiet curiosity. Some of them smiled to themselves. "A lame horse," they said. "He paid money for a lame horse. What will he do with that animal? What work can a horse like that do?" Teriel did not hurry Kamir. He did not push him or demand speed. He walked beside him for the first week, letting the horse set the pace. Slow mornings, quiet roads, the two of them moving together without urgency. And something began to happen. Not a miracle, not a sudden healing of the leg. The leg stayed the same, the walk stayed uneven, but Kamir began to carry himself differently. His head came up higher, his eyes became brighter, he ate with more appetite. He slept more peacefully. What changed was not the horse. What changed was how the horse was seen. Months passed. Teriel stayed in the village and found work as a trader of small goods, traveling between the hills and the market towns. Kamir carried him faithfully on every journey, not fast, but steady, patient, reliable in rain and in heat, never complaining, never stopping. And slowly, the village began to notice something. They noticed that Camille never stumbled, even on rough paths. They noticed that he was calm in storms when other horses grew nervous. They noticed that he carried weight without resistance, walked long hours without tiring, in the way that younger, faster horses tired. His slower pace had given him a kind of endurance that the proud horses did not have. One evening, Tariel was sitting outside the stable, resting after a long journey. An older farmer came and sat beside him. The farmer looked at Camille drinking water from his trough, slow and unhurried. The farmer said, "I remember when nobody wanted him." Tariel said nothing. The farmer said, "I passed him by myself. 3 seasons I came here and walked past him without stopping." Tariel looked at the horse for a long moment. Then he said, "He was never broken. He was only seen by broken eyes." The farmer was quiet. He thought about that for a long time. Later that night, walking home in the dark, he thought about his own son, who spoke too slowly for school. He thought about his neighbor, who had one hand, and whom no one hired. He thought about the old woman at the end of the road, who had once tried to teach the village children to read, and was laughed away because she was too quiet. He thought about how many times he had walked past something whole and called it broken. There is a thing that people do, not out of cruelty, but out of habit. They look at what is missing first. They look at the limp before they look at the eyes. They look at the crack before they look at the shape of the vessel. They measure by what is absent, and they forget to measure by what remains. Nobody is perfect. Every living thing carries some kind of limp, visible or not. Some carry it in their legs, some carry it in their hearts, some carry it in their voices or their memories or the way they love. The question is never whether the limp is there. The question is always, who will stop long enough to look at the eyes? Camille lived many years. He carried Toriel faithfully through seasons of rain and seasons of dust. He never ran a race. He never pulled a heavy plow, but he never failed the man who chose him. And in that village, people began telling his story, not because he was exceptional, but because he was whole, because he had always been whole, and it had taken one pair of unhurried eyes to finally see it. We spend so much of our lives chasing a perfection that does not exist. We wait until we are ready, until we are healed, until we are fixed, until someone approves